Hi, welcome. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Progressive Washington. Shout out to Washington State for Bernie Sanders and everybody on Uphill Media as well. We are joined today. I am out on the beautiful Washington coast, out in Westport after an amazing event. And joining me is our man behind the curtain, Oz. Welcome.
Hi there. How is everybody today? And yes, a big shout out to Washington State for Bernie Sanders, the Facebook group. I've been dying to get in there, and we got it all set up this week. So I hope you give us a look. And this is Progressive Washington, first edition in Washington State for Bernie Sanders.
So you might have noticed we have a few things to celebrate and discuss this morning. And so that's why we are bringing everybody into the fold. We've got some amazing wins yesterday in Nevada. How about that? Um,
Yay! Yay! Yeah.
I was at an amazing event in Aberdeen at the high school for our revolution. We had an organized win summit. We had amazing candidates, and next heading to Tacoma tonight for another event at On Point. There's several excellent events happening in Tacoma today, so it is definitely the place to be if you're in the area. Look out online. There's a La Resistencia event. There is a canvas for congressional candidate Josh Collins. And then we have our event, our revolution from 3 to 5 at the On Point Event Center. So hope you can join us. We are organizing all across the state of Washington and beyond. We are working with our progressive partners, and we are trying to bring this home, you guys. It was so exciting to see the amazing win we had in Nevada. And we just want to talk about what that means. We had some events happen this week in Seattle with a large rock being thrown through the Bernie campaign window. So tensions are rising. People are getting afraid. The best part is seeing the centrist tears going into many cups yesterday as Bernie totally slam dunked across many party lines and divides that really showed our unity and our strength in the West. And I think that's only going to continue up through Super Tuesday and beyond. What are your thoughts, Oz?
Well, I think it was great yesterday. I'm always apprehensive going into these things, of course, and I'm still holding my breath in certain aspects because I really wish that they had more than 60% reporting. It seems Mr. Buttigieg he's up to 15.3% at a vote count of 1172, where Bernie's at 46% flat with a vote count of 3,523. That's 10 delegates straight away for Bernie and none for the others, which is a great thing. But Amber, why do you think it's taking so long to get 100% reporting there? As I remember last time, it was reported like at 9 o'clock at night. Last time they did that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We did actually have a lot of people on the ground in Nevada. I know several people from Washington State that were actually trained through the party to go be caucus observers. But let's be honest, they're not going to give it to us. We're going to have to fight this tooth and nail in every damn state, in every primary, in every caucus situation. We need all hands on deck throughout this entire process because they are not going to give it to us. So, Fox News reported the winnings like 3 hours before any of the rest of the,
It was
quote
reporting
unquote liberal sided
2%.
media.
2%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Bernie's
I
got
mean,
it.
this again. We're not only we're playing into people's fears and the hype in the media, and that's why shows like this we're making our own because we do not trust the nonsense. We're seeing it happen, and honestly, I feel really sad for people who that's their only source of staying connected to this world because it's so misleading. So we just need to reframe and it goes back to issues. It goes back to the real dire situations that our country is facing and the people are. And I think a lot of this is actually showing that we're starting to wake up. Not only are we not playing into the rhetoric of, oh, the Russians are meddling and, oh, angry Jewish Bernie again. I mean, we really aren't playing into these narratives anymore.
Yeah,
We're
isn't
starting to
it?
really understand the plans and the issues.
Isn't that telling? I mean, you're exactly right. What 2 days before the caucus, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming, and they tried the week before they tried Bernie Bros, and there's been sexist and everything else. It's like they're throwing everything at it except the Model T Ford engine. I mean, it's unbelievable that the elitists in the establishment think that people are going to be dumbed down forever. Actually, the generations coming up are so engaged these days, thankfully, that they're not falling for that old kind of James Carville bull and Chris Matthews crying about Russia and concentration camps. They're not going for it. And wasn't that the biggest demographic of under 45 to come out in a caucus before?
Yeah. So and the racial splits too are not at all following the narrative that they play. They really, they had some really underhanded things going on with, say, the culinary workers union and some of their board members being very neoliberal, on boards of other incredibly neoliberal scenarios, and they really pushed hard to try and play that narrative.
Yeah.
And then it was, oh, we're getting death threats now.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the reality was we were speaking the truth. And I think that's the younger people are seeing people like me, people like you, who are not going to back down, and we are going to keep telling the truth. And that is the most powerful thing. And they feel like their voice can be heard and counted all of a sudden. Whereas before, I think they were disenfranchised and said, "Who gives a shit?" Honestly. So now that they see that this is a family, we are strong, we are united, we are not going to put up with lies. We're going to keep telling the truth. And they were going to paint it as Bernie Bros, but we're really all women, most of us. And we're not going to let them keep lying to people. We're going to keep telling the truth, and we're going to keep showing them the truth. And that has real power. And they're just going to keep trying. So I mean, the bottom line is, don't fall for it. Check 10 sources of different, go outside your comfort zone to check those sources, and find who's telling you the truth. Most of the time it's definitely not going to be on the nightly news. It's definitely not going to be on cable news. But talk to your friends. Most of the people I know have amazing resources. They have amazing information. And this really comes down to actual conversations, one-on-one conversations, happening, canvassing, happening on the phone. I talked to a guy the other night. He is 93 years old. He's been donating $3 a day from his Social Security to Bernie. This
Wow. Wow.
this is the kind of people that know the reality, and are going to give it everything they have.
Yeah.
And a billionaire coming from anywhere is not going to have any kind of influence on that. And we saw that with Mike Bloomberg's horrific debate performance. He can buy all the ads he wants. My 9-year-old can call him out for being, ridiculous and trying to buy her influence. And when I don't think I'd ever even mentioned his name around her. But it's just telling. And so the people are seeing that, and it's backfiring on them. And to hear people like David Plouffe, come out and say strong words against having a brokered convention was like, yeah, that is reality. Having a brokered convention is a terrible idea. And that just plays into the same narrative that a lot of these neoliberals would rather have 4 more years of Trump than let Bernie into the office. But the reality is that we're still more powerful, and there's still more of us, and we're not going.
Yeah, and I've got a piece of media I'd like to put up for a moment. It's about a minute and 5 seconds here, if you don't mind. And let me parse this media by saying this is the older generation with one of the best representatives to speak on this issue ever. And all I've got to say to this is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So let's get Dick in here and get him going. See if you can hear it.
Can't wait to see Bernie debate Mr. Trump. I'm Dick Van Dyke, and I'm very enthusiastic supporter of Bernie Sanders. The age question keeps coming up. I know that I'm 20 years older than Bernie. I have all my marbles. I could run for office if I wanted to. So I don't think age really is a matter, except for his experience and the years he's put in. And I can't understand why, according to the polls, he's having problems with older citizens like me. Why wouldn't an older citizen vote for somebody with that kind of a record and with that kind of experience and honesty and trust? It just doesn't make sense to me. He's not getting my generation. And I want to urge my generation to get out and vote for him. Please. This election, I think, is probably the most important one since the end of World War II. Another 4 years of the current administration, and we won't have a democracy anymore. 4 more years of no concern about the climate. We must get him out of there. Democratic principles are flying out the window. He has assumed authority beyond what the president's allowed, and he's going to get worse. The fact that we are the only country that doesn't have universal health care, that's shameful, and that it's more expensive than anywhere. That he'll do something about, I'm sure. Bernie has been consistent with his policies ever since I first met him when he was in the Senate. He never has changed his tack because of pressure from the outside or what he felt the wind was blowing another way. He's stuck with who he is and what he believes in. So I think somebody younger, like Bernie, is just a perfect candidate. Yeah, he'll be around for a long time.
So that kind of speaks for itself. Don't you think that was the voice that the senior movement, the seniors need to hear? I mean, everybody pretty much respects Dick Van Dyke, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have something against the chimney workers union,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're very, very safe bet. But I mean that's the thing that they keep trying to play these narratives and they just keep backfiring, and it just makes me so damn proud of the work that we've all been doing and the organizing that we're doing. And they're gonna. I am guessing in years to come that they're going to tout the Bernie Sanders campaign and the way that we have been rolling out these our issues, our volunteer base. We are overwhelming them with volunteers, and especially right now in this big Get Out the Vote Tuesday events, we literally have so many people we don't know what to do with them. And having people like Elizabeth Warren having an event in Seattle yesterday where her last event here had like 15,000 people. I think she had maybe a little over 2,000 people at the Armory last night. We want her voice. We want her voice a part of this. But it's pretty clear that she's not in front running status, unfortunately. So we want to support our progressive people. We want to support loud women voices. That is critical for this movement. And we're going to keep bringing massive people to events, to polls, door knocking, canvassing. I mean, I've heard the most amazing stories of people canvassing and door knocking in this places that have never been touched, from Iowa to Washington to Nevada to California. I mean, listening to, seeing people marching in the streets last night down the Ave in Las Vegas was awesome. I wish I would have been there. I know a lot of my friends were. And that's the kind of energy and excitement that this campaign has. And it's not just about Bernie. It's about all of us, and it's about why we're doing this. And that's so much more important. So I hope everybody finds some events today and really see what this family is about, because it's the best family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really amazed at how during the caucus yesterday, the mainstream media individuals, or the elite media, as we like to call them, the corporate-owned media, was just pooping their pants. I mean, I hope they were having adult diapers, because Chris Matthews, I thought he was going to lose it, and James Carville looked like he was going to keel over from a heart attack. It goes along with what the media has been doing to Bernie. I was watching an interview with Anderson Cooper the other day, and I'm the guy behind the curtain here, so I can adjust color on everybody, on a regular basis. And they actually, in that meeting, Anderson Cooper, he looks kind of like, Count Vlad. He's very, with his, with his complexion, he's very light. He looks kind of anemic, with his hair and everything else. But Bernie, they put it over on him, and he was red as a beet. It looked like his blood pressure was going through the ceiling. But I just want I just want to show everybody how that kind of works right here, and with saturation and things like that. But I can make Amber look just like CNN made Bernie look on that. So, Amber, you look like you're going to have a heart attack. What's going on there? See how easy it is to bring up the saturation and make somebody look like they're sickly. Well, they've been doing this from, actually creating that kind of subliminal impression to taking the worst pictures of Bernie and putting them next to, Pete Buttigieg's family album, or Joe Biden, Uncle Joe, he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread, or Elizabeth Warren, and all these profound moments where they're, speaking to the crowd with their hands. But Bernie, it looks like he's going into a WWF wrestling battle. And that's another thing we've got to be aware of, is how that subliminal programming is going on, how commercial volume goes up and down. This is not a conspiracy. I'm a tech guy. I know this stuff. This is how you try and make the opposition look bad. And I guess my question after spewing all that at the audience here is, when is this going to stop? Is it never going to stop? What do you think, Amber?
I don't think it's going to stop for a while. That's my impression. Like, again, these 5 media corporations that own, small town newspapers in, Nevada to, Texas, also are the same people that are running NBC, running CBS, running CNN, and they have multi-pronged influences. And I learned this especially while I was working with, fighting what I would call the food fight, and that they come up with these perfect profit circles. So it's like one arm of the snake goes, or the octopus goes into one industry, and then they go and reach the tentacles around the other side, so that they're not ever losing a dime on this. And the reality is, if you make $10 billion, your taxes will go up under this plan. But they're trying to scare the crap out of you that if you're middle income, barely raising a family on, 40, 60, 80, $100,000 a year, which isn't very much for, say, a family in Seattle, you're barely able to get into a small house if you're lucky, that your taxes are going to go up. And now I'm seeing a lot of this rhetoric on freedom. And so it's just kind of snowballing. They're really just trying to play up fear. They're trying to play up, Bernie's health, and is he too old? And he's already said that he would choose a younger woman of color as a running mate, which I'm so damn excited to see who that is. You have no idea.
Who do you think that might be? Are you willing to speculate at this point?
I can only say who I would hope it would be, which would be Nina Turner, is my number one hope. But I'm the reality is I'm happy with any of the amazing women of color that stand near Bernie. It's an honor, and I think they are all on the same page. And that's the thing, like I was looking at the famous Bernie dancing meme that they did on Ellen in 2016, and looking side by side, and having met and stood in photos with him last week here in Seattle, he looks so much better than he did in 2016.
Yeah, he really does. He does.
He is happy, and he is, the way his face lit up when he saw how packed the Tacoma Dome was, like, he is on fire, and people can't keep up with him.
No, I can't. I almost wish he would have challenged Pete to a set of push-ups the other night. So.
Well, we know Biden's game, but I doubt he'd actually do them. But I mean, that's the thing. They're going to keep pushing these storylines. They're going to keep painting him as old and out of touch and angry. And the reality is he's hearing our stories. He's been fighting for these issues his entire life, and we're not done yet because we haven't had the momentum that we've needed to be able to enact these changes. And this really is about freedom. The Republicans and Trump want to really push that narrative that your freedom's being taken away. And the reality is our freedom has been taken away every damn day since 1925, and they've been profiting every step of the way on that. And we're trying to bring back a level of dignity. We're not trying to tax people. We're trying to reduce this class warfare, reduce the income inequality, give people a livable wage, a way to get health care, a way to reform our tax system that actually makes sense, that people can understand, rather than the nonsense that it is today. And what Trump promised us so much, swamp clearing. And, he put people like Mike Pompeo, head of Secretary of State, who's just ridiculous. People like, Raytheon executives for Department of Defense, where we quadrupled the military spending budget. And that's not going to veterans. Let me be very clear. That military budget for veterans, veteran health, and people actually serving is shit. They did not do any increases for them, and it did not help them. This is going to high-level contracts to build weapons of war and to continue the game, and that it's not going to where people think it is. And that's the most disingenuous part of this is, a tenth of that could put a beautiful, organic, healthy meal on every school child's lunch plate all across this country. Like, it really is pennies on the dollar when you talk about what we could do with rearranging our national budget and priorities. And that's the reality. That is, to me, that is freedom. To me, that is being able to live my life, my children being able to not worry and be able to go to school, be able to eat, be able to have a roof over their heads. I mean, that at the end of the day, what are your freedoms you're losing by continuing where we've gone for the last 20 years, 40 years, 60 years? What are your thoughts on that, Oz?
Well, it comes down to the issues. I mean, everybody is getting wise to this hope and change kind of narrative that we had from the last administration, the Obama administration. Honestly, it's now or never. It's my impression is that we have the opportunity now to make change. There's never been a campaign like Bernie Sanders has put together. His team. It's not me. It's us. It's all of us. And I consider all of the Sanders supporters part of that team, not just a microcosm of a group of people, that are doing that. And if we will prevail. I'm sorry. I thought I had that phone off. I could have swore I turned it off. Anyway, we will prevail in this, or it's time to get out in the streets. I mean, don't you think that getting out in the streets is part of what the ultimate outcome is going to be? Whether we have our yellow vests or going into this thing, the convention, we might be able to take a breather and celebrate once he is the nominee, but then we've got to put him back on and get out in the streets the next day. This win yesterday doesn't mean, everything's cool, everything's going to work out all right. We need to triple our efforts, not double them, triple our efforts, and get out there and keep knocking them down, because we not only do we want to make history in that respect, but one factoid that I don't think a lot of our viewers now know is that nobody has ever won the first 3 elections in a row. This is a first. Nobody has ever won them, and Bernie has won them. Everybody's saying, well, he didn't really win. Yeah, he won Iowa, popular vote. So, he won that. He won New Hampshire, and I really wanted to do something while it was timely on the New Hampshire voting, because I want to point out that the AccuCheck machines were not in alignment with the other areas of New Hampshire that were using different means of voting. That said, is they were way below the consistency of the other votes that came out of New Hampshire, which gives me pause. And plus, as I said the other evening, once Bernie and Warren jumped up ahead of Pete Buttigieg in New Hampshire, they froze it. It was like at 2.5% reporting. And then they froze it. Why did they pick that point to freeze it? And it just flipped over. I mean, the New York Times thing flipped over and put Pete Buttigieg in third. So that does not exude confidence in the electorate doing that kind of stuff. And when we want to talk about this transparency, the NDAs that they were asking the caucus people to run yesterday, are you kidding me? Why do they need NDAs? Now, the DNC said, well, it's because they don't want to give out strategic information. And that's absolutely false. There is no strategic information in an election process. It should be transparent. There's no, it's count the votes, count the caucuses, do the math. It should be more transparent than the snake math, as some refer it to, and I do too, that they used, especially in Iowa. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I hope I gave everybody some food for thought. But I'll say before I jump off, we're not suckers anymore. We're not falling for this garbage coming from that, and I'm going to say the legacy parties, the two parties that are actually one. It's the party of the wealthy. We are battling the wealthy, not the Republicans. It's the wealthy. It's those who are in control, the establishment on both sides of the spectrum. And we're doing our best, judging from yesterday. Let's keep that on a roll, because I love you all for doing it. I respect you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's definitely on point. We've seen this, that's the narrative. It's the not me, us, and the us is all of us, and the they is this 0.1% of this planet that has concentrated its wealth to staggering levels. It's put our quality of lives at less than peasant standards from medieval times. So this is our renaissance. This is our time to take back our lives and to live happily and healthily. And we want to have medical freedoms. We want to have the freedom to enjoy our families and not work 7 jobs to survive. We want to not worry about our medical care. And we do deserve this as the most powerful and wealthy nation on the planet presently. We do have a right to that as written in our Constitution. And we forget that often. And you talk about wanting to be on the streets. I want to see that celebration in the streets. I want it to be in the streets talking to our neighbors and building our communities. And that's the thing that we haven't had time for in the last 20, 30 years, that we've lost a lot of touch with. And that's what's building this movement and giving us more momentum than any amount of money or political ads can ever do. And that's really important to talk about. This is about creating our family and building us up to the point where everybody's on the same page and everybody has a quality of life. And that has to happen, because the alternative to that is shit. And we're frankly not sitting back and letting that happen anymore. We're not sitting back and let government and corporations pretending to be government through revolving doors and terrible policies harming our families and our communities. And that's what this really comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to stay focused. Can we go back and just talk about a possibility? I know it's way early, but I want people to start looking at possible VP choices for Bernie. And I have one here. I've got a couple that I've been looking at, and I might be just shooting in the wrong pool or fishing in the wrong pool, but it's the governor of New Mexico. It's Michelle Lujan Grisham. Do you know anything about Michelle Lujan Grisham?
Personally, as in connections with Bernie, I do not. I have followed a little bit of her legacy. Again, we have amazing women stepping up in this country at all levels of government, and I cannot stress that anymore. Whoever you are out there that's saying, I have some really good ideas, but I don't think it's me. No, it is you, and we need your voices to be heard. And so that would be an amazing choice. I would be very happy with that.
Well, I'm looking at her, and truly, Bernie has alluded to that he's thinking about a woman, a woman of color, and I try and keep in mind that there are a lot of them out there, but we need the women in the Senate right now, I believe. Would you agree with that? Not to lose that Senate, but at the same time, I believe he's going to be looking at governors as well, and
Yeah.
and Michelle Lujan Grisham maybe, and I haven't vetted her at all, but I believe that she might be in contention. I know that a lot of work or talk has been around Stacey Abrams,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also another governor of Rhode Island. Do you know, oh, what's the governor of Rhode Island? Gina Raimondo is an American politician. She's a venture capitalist serving as a 75th Rhode Island governor, a member of the Democratic Party. But I don't know. I don't want to label a venture capitalist as being bad. I don't necessarily like that, though. But I think maybe that would be one that could be in contention as well. I don't know. But I'm just trying to throw these out here. Now, Grisham is an American lawyer and a politician, and she's serving as the 32nd governor of New Mexico, and she previously represented New Mexico's first congressional district from 2013 to 2018. So I guess what I'm saying is the experience is not lacking with either of these two ladies either. So Stacey Abrams, she did not win the governorship, so she did run as governor. So I don't know if that would be something to consider at all. What are your feelings on those three?
Well, I would consider Stacey Abrams available and probably more than willing to step up, and her losing her race was exactly the kind of bullshit we're fighting against. So she was more than deserving of a great run that she put in, and we saw exactly the true colors of what they were willing to do to ruin an election. And that's the kind of thing that Bernie is going to be fighting in every single state, and why we're just going to keep stepping up with thousands behind us. So I think there's amazing women. We have city council members here in Seattle that are fantastic. We have people really at all levels of government, women of color, women who understand the communities, working women, mothers, that brings a level that we need at a top level of government. And I delighted nothing more than listening to Elizabeth Warren slay Bloomberg last week. That was pretty precious.
Oh yeah, that he
she's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, she gutted him like a fish. Everybody was kind of expecting that, and I stole that because that's what they said, that he crashed him. Do you see is this the last debate coming up on Tuesday? The
last debate of the primary season, yes.
Yeah.
What I will relish in is they've already picked all the presidential debates as of last fall, including that there will be a debate in Bend, Indiana, which I thought was really interesting considering that we don't have I'm pretty sure they've never even had a debate in, anywhere close to Bend, Indiana, but they somehow decided that was going to be a good place to have a presidential debate out of nowhere.
Well, I'm sure that Mayor Pete will have a good seat in the front row watching, don't you?
Yeah, because he won't be a viable candidate. Yeah. I'm fairly positive after Tuesday. So.
Yeah. So
I just say keep letting them spend their damn money. Keep letting them try, and we're gonna keep sharing the truth. We're gonna defend the truth. We're gonna defend these policies, and we're gonna have some amazing conversations with our neighbors, with our friends, with our community, and we have a lot of worldwide support. So this pitting of Russians and Chinese and foreign influence. The world is watching us. The world does have a say in the kind of bullshit that we have spewed all across this planet. And so we have some reparations to make up for, and hopefully put somebody in office who will do something
Well,
to help.
yeah, and that's what we want. And again, we're not falling for the same old here. I mean, I checked a poll on MSM, their network, and they usually run around 500,000 votes, which it's a pretty good poll. I don't know where they come from other than straight off the net. But when they were asked about Russian interference in Bernie's campaign or this election cycle, 47% of them said they didn't believe it. They didn't, which was good, because the other percentiles were like 12% did and 14% maybe and all this kind of crap, and then there were 12% that were uncommitted. So, but the majority had a solid opinion on, no, don't give me that Russia stuff now, especially 2 days before the convention or for the caucus. So, that's hopeful too. I think people are wising up. And again, we are not, everybody who's watching this, you're not stupid anymore. You're going to fall for this crap. And the best way we can have days like a lot of us did yesterday is to get out and get engaged into the political process. I know some people don't enjoy that. They want to stay away from it. It bothers them, upset stomach. But this is our chance. This is our one true chance. And I know it's been said in many elections before, but look at what we've got before us. We've got what we have in the current in the White House now, and then we've got somebody who's coming out with issues on Medicare for all, getting rid of these wars, cleaning up the corruption, minimum wage, getting people off the streets, getting them into housing. And it's just like, these are all issues that you find on Bernie's platform. But when you go into the other candidates' platform, all you see is a bunch of double talk. And I don't see a firm commitment to virtually any of that except for rhetoric. Is that how you see it, Amber?
That is exactly how I see it, and why it's so important that we have these conversations. And really, it's one of those things. Religion and politics have been the not talked about piece. They're uncomfortable. It's not appropriate. But we really do need to have better civics understanding in this country at all ages, at all levels of society. And we need to start understanding our tax code and tax plans and Medicare. And, I do medical insurance billing, and I have to help explain to people their complicated, ridiculous medical plans. I'm talking to lawyers, I'm talking to executives, and they don't get it. It is that complicated.
Yeah.
And they have done this on purpose. Insurance plans, contracts, writers. I mean, this is the ridiculous world I live in, of trying to take federal code and break that down for childcare providers. We need to have those conversations. Those are critical to understanding what has been happening, why, and how we can move forward. And that is going to be the secret to this success, is we've got millions of people ready and willing to have those conversations with people.
Yeah, those people living on the streets need health care too. They have access to doctors and hospitals, but they're living on the streets. So if they have access to it, they can look at it all day long, but once they go in there, they can't pay for it. I mean, that's the myth of access. Everybody has access to cars and homes and trips and vacations and medical insurance or hospitals. They don't have the money to pay for it. And with the glut of people losing their homes like they did, when the Obama administration bailed out Wall Street and not the people. I mean, 6 million people lost their homes under that bailout, and they used our tax dollars to bail out the same banks that are screwing us all on everything else. It doesn't make any sense. At the same time, 6 million people lost their homes, or families lost their homes. And I would have liked to seen my tax dollars take care of my neighbors and help them stay in their homes. So now they're off the street. It's creating it's just unbelievable. It's a domino effect, and it's tearing us all down. And, you have, that brings up another point. You have Chris Matthews trying to liken Bloomberg's billions to Bernie's promises of canceling college debt and free college and everything else. It's like, are you crazy? Bloomberg's spending money. He's dumping money. He doesn't have volunteers and things, and he's comparing that to Bernie working to try with real policy to make everything better for everyone in the country. I think Chris Matthews needs to retire because he's losing his mind. Because if somebody can make that kind of analogy and lock Bloomberg $64 billion with Bernie's policies that are going to benefit the whole country and all of its people, they're out of their mind. And it's just insane, but that's the kind of stuff that we're getting every day. Do you see more of that in this next week? Do you see this run up to Super Tuesday getting even uglier? And how are they going to go on the attack in the debate? Is it all of them going to pigpile on Bernie since he won so decisively yesterday?
I think it will. And that's the thing. The reality is democracy has no downtime. We are not going to get a day off. We are not going to have to stop talking about these situations or, not only attacks against us, but, people, you look throughout, revolutions throughout history, and you don't stop. You have to continue the conversation. And that's what we've been doing for, 6 years now, is having these conversations and continuing to build them up. And the reality is that, the baby boomers viably by number are out of power. And so that's the freak out you're seeing is, their narrative of being able to control things and this promise that they've had their whole lives that they were going to be the biggest and the grandest and the best. All of a sudden, the generations behind them are more in number. And we have a very different ideology about how we'd like to see our country move forward in the world, at home, and abroad. And so that is, they're going to keep trying to play, who knows what kind of nasty thing, gee, Bernie's got 3 homes. I'm like, well, he's, it's not unheard of to have a summer home when you live on the East Coast and that he inherited and he wrote a book. Look at the other book deals that have happened. I mean, Warren was a preschool teacher for a couple years, and then she was magically a law executive consultant, because she was a senator. I mean, she funded her campaign with $10 million from her war chest of, corporate donations.
Yeah, she just slipped that over, and didn't she tell me she flip-flopped on that last week, didn't she?
Yeah.
After the week before saying she didn't want to take any of that PAC money because she believed we could do it by ourselves, pull us up by our own bootstrings. And
I want to be very frank about the super PAC, supporting Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, National Nurses United.
Yeah. I mean, teachers, nurses.
Come on. Yeah.
$15 donations.
Yes.
That is nothing compared to Bloomberg buying support in communities of color for $12,000 a month.
And buying elected officials. What's up with that? What's up? How can these officials look in a mirror, after Bloomberg, well, there was a good note though. Didn't you saw that Clint Eastwood switched from Trump to Bloomberg as far as endorsing yesterday? That was a big paradigm shift. I mean, going from one Republican to another Republican. I mean, Democrat in name only, a billionaire. I think Clint's got it. I think he's better off going for Bloomberg because he'll do more for him in the long run. Now, how old is Clint? He's 80.
He's got to be mid 80s, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So, I'm more on Dick Van Dyke's side. I'm sorry. And,
I think all of us are on Chim Chimney's side. I mean, really, it's amazing that aspect of it too. I'm just wondering how many more come out. And don't you think that Pete Buttigieg's trying to flush Bernie out as some multi-millionaire with that comment the other night about his 3 homes? Now, just looking at my little piece of property here is probably worth, 300 grand, not that that means anything because I have to have a place to live. But in Washington State, particularly in Seattle, if, a little broken down mobile home like this up in Seattle would be probably $750,000. So that doesn't say too much once you've had a lifetime of working your life and you have a home in Vermont, you have a home in DC where you work every day, and then you have a summer home that you inherited that is probably shared by your 7 grandchildren and your children and everything else. I mean, what was Pete Buttigieg trying to tell everybody, that Bernie was a multimillionaire on the scope of Bloomberg? And when Pete Buttigieg has the nerve to say something like that, when he's got 40 billionaires donating to his campaign and nowhere near the individual donors that Bernie Sanders has, as we've seen.
Yeah.
I just don't get that. I mean, people aren't buying that. They're smarter than that, Pete. Come on. So,
I know. And then, Biden does the same thing. Well, I was least in Congress. Well, that's fine, but your son was raking in $50,000 a month with no experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Making great tech deals in China on your behalf.
Yeah,
you were president. So,
nepotism.
I mean, the Dems have been just as corrupt as the rest of them, and we see that too. And that's a very important distinction. This is working class people. This is, if you, and it's so funny because I do know a lot. I mean, I come from, redneck Alaska. And so I do know a lot of very fervent, freedom loving, independent minded, and they're Trump supporters. But I've also met a lot of Trump supporters who've switched. And when you really get down to the details, it's really, again, about building that fear. And that's what they're going to keep playing. They're going to keep, like the hit ads that they put out about, taxes.
Disgusting.
That's the narrative. We just need to keep saying the truth. We're not going to come out attacking with death threats. And let's be very clear, candidates like Pete Buttigieg, who have been strategically consulted and hired Facebook officials out there. If you have not heard about Cambridge Analytica, do not think that the Democratic Party is not doing the exact same thing with a candidate like Pete Buttigieg. They are meddling in data, which is a new form of oil in the world. And they are trying to take people who they think can be influenced and switch their vote. And they have a ton of information on you because we've readily given it to them on a Facebook survey or liking certain things, or, they combine your credit card purchases with your phone history, with your email history. They put that all in a pot and they have a lot to work with. I do a lot of work with data and metrics, and it's astounding to me that the DNC thinks that it's going to get an upper hand in playing the same games as the Republicans. It really is, it's very unfortunate to me. But the reality is you cannot replace conversations that happen in person. You cannot replace independent media. We are going to be coming out in droves. There's thousands behind us. You can take one down. There'll be, we're like the head of Medusa. There'll be 10 popping up with the same conversations because we're not going to stop speaking the truth. And I think that's, we can have a lot of conversations about freedom, but it's really a conversation about truth and what is honest and genuine. And somebody like Bernie Sanders has integrity that nobody else on that stage will ever have.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I'm on social media a lot because that's part of my job with our group here is, I'm the media guy. And I've really not seen any horrible attacks on anybody coming from Bernie supporters. I'm sure you're going to have a very small percentage of individuals who are more caustic and angry and I'm not going to call it passion. I'm just going to say they're just so stressed out over things. They're going to say things that they shouldn't. But I don't believe Bernie should be held accountable for one individual's outbursts and attacks. I mean, I have not seen anybody threatened. And these ones that are cited, I find that even hard to believe because at the core, the real Bernie supporters, the ones who are out there who are trying to get him elected and inform the public are very conscientious and cautious of how they approach people, because we care about our sisters and brothers, and we need these people to beat the current occupant of the White House. I mean, it's all about that. And to see the DNC and the elites shoot themselves in the foot by bringing in a Bloomberg candidate, a billionaire, into this, trying to test the water or shave down the vote to get it to go to a second round with the superdelegates at the convention, is just, it's heartbreaking to see them do that. Because if we would just now get on board and support Bernie, because he's been polled as being the #1 candidate that can beat Trump, and I don't want to lose that time. So again, I hope that the next debate goes maybe a little like the last debate did, but I'd like to see more substantive issues. And I don't think Mr. Bloomberg's capable of having a substantive conversation that is actually for the people. He'll throw out rhetoric and his old ideas, and and they are old ideas. He's a 90s kind of kleptocrat, or whatever you want to call him. But Elizabeth Warren and Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, I don't want everything focused on attacking on Bernie. I want to hear more about policy, but we're only going to get that from Bernie, because I don't see them switching up their game at this point. Now, we have to remember President Obama, how he used to say, what was one of the quotes? Hillary Clinton will say anything to win. I mean, he had quite a few attack ads on her, and I have not seen any attack ads other than, the truth about where these other candidates come from, particularly Mr. Bloomberg. I haven't seen any real attacks on Warren or Klobuchar and the rest of it. Have you?
I have not, but I also don't watch said media. I might turn cable back on if they free Assange. Put it that way.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, and I watch too much. My eyeballs are sinking in my head at a young age. So, yeah, way too much. So, we've got a few more minutes here. Did you want to make any statements about our local events that you had recently?
Yeah. So we had an amazing event yesterday in Aberdeen. We had congressional candidate Josh Collins. We had LD rep candidate for Washington State, Mariana Everson. And it was just amazing. We had some fantastic, it was just conversations. We had some amazing conversations. Stories were being told, shared about immigration, about student debt, about Medicare for all. It's these issues that people care most about in this country. And that's why we're going to continue these events and conversations. We have another event tonight happening in Tacoma, like I said earlier today. So that'll be from 3 to 5 today at the On Point events. I don't have the address with me, but we can post it in the notes and online. And then next weekend, we'll be up at the Gardner Community Center, which is in between Port Townsend and Port Angeles. And then we're also looking at a Tri-Cities event to be happening and announced shortly. We're just really trying to get this conversation going. We want to build this progressive community and family really to an unbreakable level. Like I said, no downtime in democracy. We're going to keep fighting for issues. We're going to get ready to launch Medicare for All in Washington State with the Whole Washington Signature Pledge Drive. If you have not heard about Whole Washington, now is the time to get informed. We're going to be coming around to every legislative district to get resolutions passed in support of this measure. And we are going to be collecting over 200,000 signatures to get it on the ballot this year. In Washington State alone, Whole Washington would save $600 billion. Is it six? Sorry, I might have misspoke. I believe it's $6 billion in one state. One state. So, when we have these conversations nationally and you say you can't afford them, it's bullshit. We have the money. We're just spending it on pharmaceutical drug prices that they can jack the market up 400% when they feel something's getting hot because they're, people are so sick. We're so excited. We're profiting through the roof, and that's what has to stop. That's what these issues and conversations are about. And talking with our community is about these initiatives locally. It's about maintaining our conversations throughout election cycles, throughout campaigns, that we are a united front, no matter what happens and no matter what is thrown at us. And so I hope you guys can come out. They're going to be amazing. It's a great opportunity to connect with people, to learn about issues happening in your community, hear your neighbors' stories. I mean, that's the thing. We're talking, we're also listening, and we're saving space for people who have not had a chance to do that. And that's so important in times like this. We've got a lot of anger, hate, and fear rising. And so we're here to calmly be the peacekeepers and to have these conversations that are so necessary to change our country.
Well, yeah, I'd also like to say that anybody down in California, get down there and let's send Nancy Pelosi packing. Shahid Betar is poised to beat Nancy Pelosi, and we need to use the same approach as we are with Bernie Sanders. Shahid Betar, support him if you're in California. Get out there, canvass for him, do everything, just like Jason Call, just like Rebecca Parson up in Washington. In the second, Rebecca's in the 6th, is that right?
Sixth
Congressional district. And she's running against Kilmer, right?
Yep.
And one of the worst in the state, Rick Larson. We need everybody to get behind Jason Call and get out there, and let's get rid of that lame tool for the establishment, Rick Larson. He takes all kinds of money from everybody that you wouldn't want. And I guess my final comment is you can see the gift below is you want to see the establishment kicked out. We've got Dick Van Dyke down there, and he's kicking out everybody. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. You see that there, Amber? He's kicking out the establishment. That's how I want the debate to go on on Tuesday. I want that all done. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Elizabeth. Sorry there, Tom Steyer. But Dick Van Dyke's got it right. And again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this week's Progressive Washington. We kind of had to do it on the fly because we're all very, very busy. Again, Amber and Rhonda and Courtney and the rest of our group are running around Washington State doing their thing. We blew the top off the Tacoma Dome last week, and that was Our Revolution Bernie-crats, right? Our Revolution. Yeah, and it was great. We saw a lot of our friends from Oregon and some from Nevada I saw there. So there were a lot of people there. Did you want to say anything about that event real quick before we get out of here?
Two things. I wanted to quickly mention that Chris Armitage over in CD5 in Spokane area is very likely poised to kick out Kathy McMorris Rogers as well.
Yay! Republican
Yes.
Kathy McMorris. Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah. So that's going to be a blowout. I can't wait to celebrate that with my Eastern friends. And the Tacoma Dome, I mean, that was fantastic. We overwhelmed them with volunteers. We overwhelmed them with people.
It was more than 17,000, wasn't it?
I'm guessing 19 to 21,000.
Wow, easy. Yeah, because the place holds 23,000, and it looked like they were underreporting it. I didn't see any empty seats.
There was a handful of empty seats, but most of those because they were on stage at the time. We could have fit a few thousand more on the floor, but we didn't want to make it an unsafe level. So that I was actually helped coordinate that piece of the event. And so I knew the exact number of everybody on the floor at all times. And so we just wanted to maintain it being safe. And of course, everybody was just so excited. The mood, the enthusiasm, the hugs. Oh
yeah, it was great. Yeah.
It was a beautiful event. All the speakers were amazing. Tim Robbins was freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, and with what's her name? Julianne Margolin.
Yes, Julianne Margolin was from 0 Hour.
She was wonderful. Yeah.
We had Shama Swant.
Oh,
was
terrific.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We had other city council members as well. I mean, it was just the whole event was it was very well put on. It went very smoothly. I couldn't have asked for a better event. Everybody was just so damn excited to be there.
Yeah.
It was that is the kind of enthusiasm. Those are the people, and we had what, 3-4 days notice.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was fast. Yeah.
that's how we do this stuff.
Well, we felt the energy on the whole West Coast and across the country. It was great, and I'm seeing some of the social media talkers highlight David Dole. I know he's over in Toronto, I think, and he highlighted that event and showed a lot of it. So, hey, this Western Wall, we're showing our stuff, and we got to keep it up. So I want to also I want to thank Uphill Media, which is their platform. They're letting us stream this out on, and we have our own up here as Roar Media Live that's coming alive. And hi to Rhonda. She couldn't make it this morning. And thank you, Amber. This was a great show, and for tolerating me and my fumbleness. But I really enjoy talking with you, and it's great.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the work you do. And again, I look forward to seeing you all at upcoming events, community canvases, and celebrating these wins and our community and fam across the globe. Thank you.
Have a great one, everybody. See you on Tuesday night.